Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's been a little while since I've made a video. But I'm always thinking and dreaming and chasing the old questions. I can't help myself. Though I have to admit, it's better with others of like mind. It's better when we chase things together, and then we celebrate our successes and we mourn our losses together, and we encourage one another and inspire one another. I think there are maybe 2 or 3 foundations of my own inspiration. One of them is reverence and adoration and love. And particularly when I'm in love and enchanted with a woman, then my creativity just blossoms and kind of skyrockets. It's been a long time since something like that occurred in my life. The last time there was any truly significant instance of this was in a relationship with a woman who I actually never met. Oh wow, the moon is closely approaching fullness. A few more days, perhaps. Funny that those two things should go together, because I think of that woman as the moon a lot. But then I'm inclined to think of women as lunar and men as solar, in a general sense, though each specific person and even particular people in certain circumstances, all these matters coalesce and change and transform each other. So one of the foundations of my inspiration is love and reverence. And reverence is a feeling that comes easy to me. Not the same as love. Hard to describe the particular difference, but there's some kind of profound humility in reverence. For me. And also the sense that what I have reverence for is truly and authentically noble, through and through. I guess one of the other catalysts is curiosity. And there are different flavors of this, just as there are different flavors of reverence or love. Many different flavors. Our language is deceptive in that it doesn't present a nuanced, layered topology of identity or meaning. It tends to give it as sort of this, it gets to give it a kind of a monochrome, right? Like, it's one thing. I know what a tree is. When one could spend an entire lifetime trying to understand what trees are and be very, very good at it and get no more than 1/millionth of the way home, right? And still make huge progress. But the idea that because we know the word, we know what the thing is absurd. It's a magical spell cast by the waking mind's egoic need to pretend that knowledge originates with it. And not just the waking mind, but the representational aspect of the waking mind. And I was having a conversation with someone last night, and I'll come back to the catalysts, right? Curiosity is one of them, but there are different forms. I was in a conversation last night where someone was talking about something I'll refer to as immediate knowing. Knowing without judging or thinking. And this gets wrapped up with words like intuition, or even in some circles clairsentience, which is too much word, too much language, though there might be such a thing. I think in fact there probably is, though much of what gets labeled that is probably something else. In any case, I quipped that I think most of our experience of knowledge and understanding and awareness, it happens non-verbally, and then post facto, after the fact of the non-verbal emergence of awareness, understanding, interpretation, evaluation, then this aspect of consciousness comes forward with language and models and proceeds to take credit for all of that stuff it couldn't do if the universe depended on it, the universe depended on it doing it even one time. So there's this weird thing that happens in consciousness where a sort of conceptual linguistic prosthesis of our minds is desperate to encompass all aspects of sensing and knowing. And we see this reflected in certain philosophers like Daniel Dennett, and scientists, and some ways of knowing that believe or that promote the idea that the universe and organisms and minds and all these things are merely mechanical. They're just mechanical accidents. There's no upper, universe of meaning or origin or communion or unity or anything like that. And then they steal language from religion, and they steal ideas from religion and reify them in psychomechanistic terms. And these are the knights, right? The sort of empty suits of armor, riding robot horses, pretending to be bringing us the truth and the noble perspective that frees us from some bizarre kind of superstition that would otherwise dominate and destroy our intelligence. And it's certainly true that some forms of bizarre superstition have dominated and destroyed human intelligence. There's no doubt about that. But that doesn't mean we get to dismiss the entire 99% of the universe that remains completely unknown to human beings with a fell swoop of a sword from some guy who thinks that minds are just sort of like the exhaust behavior of having physical brains or something like this. Or that the universe is fundamentally computational, right? Just nonsensically ridiculous ideas. Humans have long had a problem, and it continues to this day, and every generation of humans for at least a few thousand years has had this problem where we tend to model nature and the universe and relationships and organisms in the likeness of the machines we have ourselves invented as derivations of the properties of organismal activity and relation and metabolism and so on. So all of this is really comedically immature, philosophically, in my view. And when I say philosophically, I don't mean in light of human philosophy. I mean in light of the adoration of something resembling wisdom. That's what I mean. So curiosity. You know, I have many different forms. I too have the prosthesis of conceptual and linguistic ideation, and that aspect of my mind has egoic properties and factors, factions, organs that want to acquire validation and celebration and benefits for their work and so on. So I don't say these things because I feel I've escaped them. It's very, very difficult to do that. But to remain aware of them while pursuing knowledge and understanding and awareness about some of the most astonishing features of existence: light, time, living worlds, stars, minds, dreams, love, the nearly unspeakable world of origin, that our religions are the remnants of our ancestors, distant ancestors' understandings of and relationships with. You know, it's funny, I'd love to show the moon that I see, but if I turn the camera toward it, what you'll see is not the moon that I see. You see this little dot right here? That thing is gigantic in my view, and extremely bright and crisp and clear. And our conceptual minds are a lot like this camera, right? They don't show the moon at all. It's almost like, it's like if I took a bad Xerox of a negative and then I tried to pretend that the Xerox was the actual thing. This happened to me, actually. A dentist took a pano of my jaws. It's a specific type of x-ray, but then instead of looking at the negative produced by the x-ray, which was absolutely available to him physically at that time, he had his nurse take a blurry Xerox of the x-ray. And he then proceeded to diagnose one of my teeth with a very serious, almost certainly fatal to the tooth problem that terrified me. For months I was trying to figure out, how am I going to fix this? How can this possibly be fixed? Then I went to another dentist. Actually, I'm going to support this dentist by mentioning her business name. So here in San Francisco, she runs a shop called Toothology, and she is one of the best dentists I've ever seen in my life. She is really good. If you're around San Francisco and you need dental work, go to her. She is fabulous. Might have a little trouble getting an appointment, so make one soon. Anyway, she took a shot of the same tooth and it was fine. There's nothing wrong with the tooth at all. For sure, not maybe. And so this is kind of what happens with with conceptual cognition, right? We get a skewed or biased, blurry version, and it's blurred in a specific way that mirrors our purposes in not looking more clearly at whatever we're examining or trying to understand. The coronavirus and the vaccines and the public response and the social, the responses of governments to the virus, all of these things are subject to similar problems. Because there are political interests and commercial and monetary interests, we're not really doing very good science. Some science is getting done, and of course what we means is open to interpretation. I'm not really sure there is a central we, the way that the language implies, and we use this language all the time, or at least we are subject to it being used if we're not using it ourselves, and I'm using it right now when I say we or we're. So I'm often at pains to disclose some of the pitfalls of our common experiences of representational cognition, the conceptual mind, particularly English and the way that we are scripted to use it. The language itself is not terrible, but it's really bad when we combine it with the cultural tropes that lead us to collapse meaning and identity into nonsensically flat, single variable deliverables. That stuff is mind-wrecking. So, catalysts for my questing. I also think there's a kind of a nameless foundation that comes before curiosity or love. It's an urgent imperative of the soul that follows us into human birth, but for most of us burns out fairly early in our lives, though for some of us it continues until our death. And maybe for everyone it does, it's just differently accessible to different people in different situations, different times and places in their lives. I think our birth as humans is the result of a long collection of purposive behavior prior to our being born as humans. There are urgent necessities that seem to underlie our incarnation, to me. And without, trying to be religious about it or claiming to know, because I certainly don't know these things yet, or at least I don't know them logically. I know them with my intuition. So my point is that I think our human birth is the result of many other situations, possibly many other incarnations, or even a kind of a stranger idea, which is that there are a constellation of urgent needs and hopes and dreams in the human cognitium. The slaves want freedom. The kind people want an end to war and hatred and poverty and catastrophic ecological devastation. And so those urgent imperatives might draw a soul together in their image and cast it in the form of a human, right? This is also, in fact, I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's both and more. So there are some astonishing things that I think are the precursors to our emergence as human beings, with human minds and souls and bodies. But I think we also have non-human souls and non-human minds, and perhaps a non-human existence, that our humanity is like a living extension of, something like this. And then, of course, I also have sort of parascientific or rationalist concerns. Certainly, I would like to disabuse myself of delusions, and yet there's a problem there, because there are aspects of our humanity that are invisible to us unless we choose to participate in them. A good example is love. I am certain there are people who have never felt love. There are certainly people who feel they have never been loved, but I also believe there are people who have never themselves felt love for another being. And if they've felt caring feelings, this doesn't mean they felt love. And I know a few people like this. It's just not clear they feel love. Or if they do, its expression is very different from my own. And the reason that I say this is that in our human desire, in our intellectual desire to disabuse ourselves of delusions, we run a terrifying risk. The risk, and if we don't have that goal, we also run another risk. So if we magicalize everything, then we don't merely run the risk of delusion, we nearly guarantee that we will live in it. But similarly, if we're unwilling to imagine a world in which something like magic is real, then we run the risk of having so narrow a perspective that much of the nature of the mysterious and beautiful reality in which we participate and from which our minds emerge becomes hidden to us. So it's a very strange sword with many different edges. Someone I was speaking to last night was making rather wild claims that seemed to me delusional about, until you believe it, you will not see it. Well, that's not entirely untrue. And there are positions that I hold that are important to me in which I believe unlikely things. There's the old quote from Alice in Wonderland, something about, having believed 3 impossible things before breakfast or something like this. But there's also a kind of naive, cult-like, religious-like vulnerability to the wrapping paper of metaphysics that I find extremely dangerous and troubling, confusing, damaging, harmful. So one has to have a balanced, if we remain in the realm of maps, concepts, formalizations, ideas, language, if we're going to talk about these things, a great sobriety is required, and along with the ability to truly experiment and to leave our armor at home and go naked to the phenomenon and inquire of the whole breadth of its possibilities, right? Personally, intimately, profoundly. We need both things. We need sobriety and an almost entirely naked openness. And we need different forms of curiosity, not merely the rational form, to make progress, or the rational forms, it seems to me. So these are some of the things that underlie my chasing questions. And I miss having a good group to chase them with. I really do. However, as I'm about to wrap this video up, I'd like to ask my viewers, whoever you may be, to take a moment and log in to YouTube and leave 2 to 5 of the most important questions in the comment section. And in a coming video, if you will do this, and there are more than 3 comments of this type, then I will pursue them in a future video. I won't answer them, but we'll explore them together. Yeah. So thank you for joining me. I hope that the coming of the very cold weather And the holidays is treating you with great kindness, generosity, warmth, and magic. Bye for now. Here's the tiny moon that the camera cannot see. Oh my God, that is nothing like what I can see with my eyes. Doesn't even resemble it. But there she is, Luna. Thank you for joining me.